There's far more support. I mean, I'll put it this way, the way Thomas put it. Back in the 1980s, Thomas Sowell and Walter Williams made a pact never to fly together. Because if the plane went down, it would be the end of black conservatism in America. So we're a long way from that today.
Let's talk about the doc and Thomas Sowell. First off, when did you become aware of the work of Thomas Sowell? How did this whole project come together?
Oh, well, I first became aware of Thomas Sowell when I was in college in the early 1990s. I was having I worked for my college paper, and I was having a conversation about affirmative action with one of my colleagues on the school paper. And another person walked over and said, "You sound like Tom Sowell." And I said, "Tom who?" And I had no idea who he was. Person wrote down the name of a book. I went and checked it out of the school library that evening and read it in one sitting and spent the weekend reading everything else that the library had by Thomas Sowell, and I was hooked. And so he really had a big impact on my sort of intellectual development since college. But I was already leaning more conservative by the time I discovered Thomas Sowell, which I found out later is not at all uncommon. I mean, by the time Clarence Thomas discovered Thomas Sowell, his reaction was, "Wow, there's someone else out there who thinks like me." Walter Williams, who recently passed away, had the exact same experience. They were friends for 50 years, and when they first met, Walter Williams was already Walter Williams. So you hear this time and again. People have found their way to Thomas Sowell, but he hasn't necessarily led them to believe what they now believe. Yeah.
Right. So as a guy that wrote a book about him that's upcoming and did the doc and everything, you must be just like over the moon that he's had this resurgence, this renaissance.
Oh, yeah.
With young people, because when I interviewed him, I mean, the amount of emails that we got and handwritten letters and Facebook messages and the whole thing saying this man transformed my life. And in many ways for me, people always say to me, "Dave, it seems like you've changed so much politically." And I always say, well, actually, I'm mostly the same. Economics is where I changed. It's just that's the one. Like I don't deny it, right? But the other stuff is pretty much there and was always there. But economics is the one that really changed. And it was because of Thomas Sowell. It was happening before that interview. But to me, that moment, that was it. That pretty much was it.
And I am thrilled that a younger generation of people are interested in Sowell because what he has written over the years is as relevant today as ever. He was writing about social justice issues 30 and 40 years ago, and he's still right about these things. In fact, it is amazing how long he has been so right about so many issues. You can go back and read personal letters that he wrote in the 1960s to people about how he thought the civil rights movement was going to end. It's really, really amazing how his prescience in that regard. But in terms of me personally discovering Sowell, that's when it happened back in college. In terms of the film, well, I guess I should start with the book. I've known Sowell for about 15, 20 years, and I've been pressuring him to let me do this biography for some time. And I knew I could do it without him. He said I could do it without him, but I wanted his cooperation. I didn't think a lot of other people would talk to me if I didn't have his blessing to do it. And he finally gave in and let me start writing it. So I started on it about 4 years ago. I got interrupted by someone else to write another book about another issue, so I put the Sowell book aside, and then I got back to it about 2018, and the result will be out in the spring. When the people at the Free to Choose network, and they're the ones who produced the documentary, learned about the book, they came to me and asked me if I would be interested in narrating a documentary film that they were putting together. And Sowell had a long history with the Free to Choose network through Milton Friedman, one of his mentors, who did a series for Free to Choose on public television back in the early 1980s. And Sowell was participated in Milton Friedman's show. And so they wanted to do a documentary on Sowell. They asked me if I was interested in being a narrator and helping in developing the film, and that's how that got started.
Yeah, there's a moment, I think when I was interviewed, I mentioned this moment. I don't know if it made it into the doc, but I'm sure you'll appreciate this. When I finished the interview with him, and I had tweeted out right before, I'm about to sit down with Thomas Sowell. If he's influenced you in any way, send me a message and maybe I can read a couple to him. And I got hundreds, if not thousands of tweets. And I said to him at the end, I said, Dr. Sowell, I tweeted out that, I'm sitting down with you and I just got so many of these great messages. If you want to take a look. And I kind of showed him my phone and he goes with that great voice. He goes, young man, I've been doing this for a long time. And I just thought it was the perfect response, like truly the perfect response, getting to what you're saying, that the things that he was talking about 30, 40 years ago, they're relevant and feel new to us now. But this has been a long slog for this guy.
Oh yeah, it has been, and there's a lot of people think that Tom is on Twitter because there's a fan site, and it's run by a millennial who's never met Tom. It's not an authorized site, and all this guy does is tweet quotes from past Sowell columns and books. That's it.
Right.
There's no added commentary to them. He just takes these quotes and tweets them out. It has hundreds of thousands of followers, which would be amazing for anyone, but especially for someone who's not on social media like Thomas Sowell is.
Yeah, no, it really, that account, it's at Thomas Sowell, and for a long time I thought it was some sort of official account. But every time they tweet out a meme or just a quote, whatever it is, and it's like, if he wrote that yesterday, you'd be going, man, this guy knows what's up. And then, of course, you find out, oh, no, he wrote that, in 1969 or something like that.
Well, people are, what's amazing, and this speaks to your comment about how long Sowell has been doing this. People often say to me after I give a speech or write something in the paper, you must be very brave to write something like that. If I write, and it's really usually if I write something contrarian about race or an issue like that. And I don't think there's anything particularly brave about it. I think of Sowell as someone who's particularly brave. He's been doing this for a long time, well before there was a Fox News, well before there was social media support or talk radio people that had his back and that sort of thing. He was just out there writing this stuff, and he was doing it largely alone and without the support that many conservatives, particularly black conservatives today have. So that's bravery in my book.
What kind of support do you think black conservatives have now? Because I think you could probably argue it both ways. On one hand, there is now some defense of black conservatives. I have many black conservative friends. There's more out there, obviously. But on the other hand, I'm not going to have to tell you all the things that you guys get called. And I don't even want to say them because YouTube will delete the video.
That comes with the territory. Yes, the name calling has always been there, but there's far more support. I'll put it this way, the way Thomas put it. Back in the 1980s, Thomas Sowell and Walter Williams made a pact never to fly together. Because if the plane went down, it would be the end of black conservatism in America. So we're a long way from that today, and just the support I get. I was a few years ago, I was invited to speak on a college campus, and then I was disinvited to speak. I wrote a column about it. I went on television and talked about it. The president of the university was bombarded with complaints from graduates and even some students at the school for disinviting me. They reversed course and re-invited me. That sort of thing, I don't know that Tom would have ever had that kind of support 30 or 40 years ago. But that's what's out there today for black conservatives, yeah.
Do you find that his evolution, as I talked to him about, and we had this great viral clip where I said, how did your political evolution happen? And, he just paused. Facts. It's just facts. That was what caused him to go from, a Marxist in essence to a libertarian. It seems like it's happening to an awful lot of people right now. It's not something that the media is going to talk about, but it seems like a lot of young people are getting it.
Maybe we talk to different young people.
Yeah, no, a lot of them are missing it too. I know that.
when I see the rise of an Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez,
yeah.
The way she talks about how there's, billionaires should be banned, or that sort of thing tells me something else might be going on, and I think, part of it might have to do with the experience. I mean, if you're a young person today, and your idea of how an economy should be growing, or what the employment should look like in this country was the Obama years, or shortly thereafter, that's your experience, and maybe you're thinking capitalism isn't all that great of a thing if this is all it can do. So maybe you have a skewed sense of capitalism, and maybe that's where people like AOC come from in terms of how they view free market economics. But I think that Republicans and conservative intellectuals in general, I think, need to do a better job of communicating these ideas to young people. I think, in a large sense, they're losing that fight. Now, the young people typically are more left of center, as Tom was when he was younger.
Yeah.
And then they grow up. They grow out of it. Experience teaches them that another way is better. But I do think that Republicans in particular need to do a better job of communicating some of these ideas to young people.
If you're looking for more honest and thoughtful conversations about politics instead of nonstop yelling, check out our politics playlist. And if you want to watch full interviews on a variety of topics, watch our full episode playlist, all right over here. And to get notified of all future videos, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell.